Hey everyone, Jordan here. Today Phanteks are launching a new case into their range. This is the G400A. You may have seen some footage on it at Computex a few months ago. It looks to be a very popular case from what I could tell. So it's now here. We can take a look and get it unboxed. It comes in black and white. It's going to be about £85 or $100. Now not only that, Phanteks are also launching a new AIO, some new fans, and their all new control hub as well, next link. We'll be talking about that more in the next video. I'm going to cover all the AIO and fans and that stuff in that one as well, so get subscribed and ding the bell so you don't miss that. But for now, let me get the G400A out of the box and we'll take a look. Some nice dense foam holding this case in place. We generally see nice high quality stuff from Phanteks, so that continues here. So there is the G400A. First impressions, it does remind me of the G500 Performance Edition a little bit, especially with the front here. The way it goes a little bit wider to the bottom. It's very white as well. I would say that Phanteks cases are the whitest of cases. Generally you might see a little bit of a kind of cream tinge to some, but generally speaking, Phanteks are the whitest cases that I've looked at. So let's go around it. On the top we have got our power button on the right hand side. Looks to have some illumination around it as well. Got a reset, headphone, microphone combi jack. And we've got two USB-A ports. These are just the USB 3. And we've got a USB Type-C, which is USB 3.2 Gen 2x2. So 20 gigabits per second. Nice fast port on there. Then you can see a perforated area. Then we have space there for a 360mm AIO. You could of course do two 140, so at 280mm AIO instead if you'd rather. That just goes in at the end and then it clips into place. On the front of the case we have a rectangular design for the holes on here. Taking that off with some magnets on the top. Quite a solid panel actually. We then have a dust filter. This also is magnetic. You can easily remove that. Now I am quite curious about the performance hit we're going to take by using this mesh dust filter, so maybe I'll test it with and without and we can have a look in the conclusion. Underneath that dust filter we have one of the talking points of Computex. There's kind of moulded design which is going to help focus that airflow, which should reduce the turbulence as well with any air escaping at the top and the bottom of the case. I have seen that previously, so in theory it should focus the airflow where it needs to go and improve the overall effectiveness. There's three pre-installed 140mm fans. These are the M25 G2s, and they also have a little infinity mirror on them as well. We'll leave that on for now, but of course show you that in the conclusion. On the bottom of the case, we've got a small dust filter for the power supply at the back of the case. Also some tool legs as well, so we're going to get some nice fresh airflow in for that PSU. Nothing really else to talk about there though. Getting into the inside of the case, tempered glass panel. There's a little branding on the side. I'm generally not a fan of that, but that one does look quite clean. And I actually quite like that for a change. A couple of thumb screws to take the side panel off. I say that's about 3mm tempered glass, so fairly thick. There also might be a little bit of a tint to the black edition as well, so something to bear in mind. Into the belly of the beast, this case does support rear-facing motherboards, so your MSI Project Zero and your Asus BTF, so that's a great thing to see on a kind of case of this price point. We've got loads of different cutouts. One of them is a bigger one for any EPS connectors if you're going to use a standard board and bring them round. There's another 140mm fan pre-installed in the rear for a rear exhaust. The connector is quite visible though, not a fan of that. However, there is a gap in the frame. If I just tilt this up, you might be able to see, which means you might be able to rotate the frame and then hide that connector in there, then use just the normal length for the cable as the visible part. That's certainly something I'd look to do because that connector, not a fan of that there, just visible like that. Got a couple of grommets for your cables to come through here. That's just about wide enough for a 24 pin to fit through. Just tilting the case up, you have got some more cutouts for your front panel things to go through and an HD audio connector as well. There's also a little cutout if you want to bring a EPS connector or a 12V up through there. Alternatively, we have got some screw holes that you can add an additional 360mm of fans onto, like I showed you at the intro. One of those can just go straight onto there if you want to add that in. Then we have got some mesh on the side here, as well as also on the back if you do want to bring in some fresh air from the basement of the case. This case can take a total of 10 fans, so 3 in the front, 3 in the bottom at 120, 3 in the top with 120s, and then also the rear 140. Let's talk about other limitations we've got. In terms of your CPU tower, you can do a maximum height of 184mm, and then GPU length up to 415, so perfect for when the 5090s come out if there's any real big ones. Last little things to talk about before we go around to the back. We have got a little diffused RGB section along here. I really like the little tasteful RGB accents that Phanteks put into their cases. I'll of course show you this one lit up in the conclusion. Onto the back of the case, of course, our rear I/O for the motherboard, the pre-installed 140mm exhaust. Then we have our standard 7 expansion brays further down, and then finally our PSU mount in the bottom. This case can take a maximum length power supply of 270mm, so you've got plenty of room for all your cables to go underneath as well. A couple more thumb screws to take the back panel off. quite a thick panel there as well, fairly rigid. And here we can see all the cutouts for all our cables for your rear connect boards if you're going to use one there. All of our front panel things are here as well. Let's have a look what we've got. So there's a USB 3, we've got a Type C, a 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB. We also have the standard Phanteks connector as well if you want to daisy chain any additional things on. There's our front panel all-in-one header, love to see that. And we've also got our HD audio there. There's also some little plastic T-clips as well, so I'm guessing you can run some cables through there, then up along as well. Maybe quite handy for EPS connectors in the top of the case. Also some little loop points for zip ties and things to add on. Then down here at the bottom of the case we have a storage bracket, so you could do 2 hard drives or you can do 1 hard drive and then 1 SSD. That sled also houses our accessory box. Let's have a look at what we've got inside here. We've got about 30 zip ties. There's also our standard screws. Also some longer ones if you want to go through some fans as well. No plastic accessory box like we generally see with Phanteks cases, but this is a cheaper case, so of course there will be a few cuts somewhere along the line. This is obviously one of them. There's a closer look at that bracket as well, so you can do 1 hard drive inside and then an SSD outside, or you can do 1 hard drive there and then 1 hard drive inside. So that was a look around the case itself. I'm now going to get my test system in this so I can do some thermal testing. I can then talk to you about my build experience and then give you my overall thoughts. So on to the conclusion for the G400A. I'm a little bit late filming this outro before the embargo, as I was hoping to get that AIO video done and then build it all up together so you can see it all in one case. However, I will do that for the AIO review, which should be up hopefully in 1 or 2 days after this one. The build, even for a test system, I think looks pretty good. The RGB on the fans, infinity mirror, and also the diffuse strip look great. I did find the RGB cable to be a bit short. I actually grated it on the cutout trying to plug it in. Plus, as we have daisy chain fans, the cables are going in different directions, which can make it a little bit spaghetti. Now, the build experience for this case I feel was a little bit mixed. As I was building it, I was thinking about the features that have brought up the price. Obviously, we have the new M25 G2 fans throughout. And then there's some smaller things like more flexible cables to ensure you can get your back panel on when you're using a rear connect motherboard. Those are some things that obviously bring up the price. And then where I think they've saved money is in some of the panels. One thing I really dislike are the pegs on the back of this back panel. They're really difficult to slide in. Once you actually do locate them all, I found there's still a little bit of bowing as well. So they are just a little bit, I think, cheaply made, and an alternative solution needs to be looked at for this. Now, when I looked at the Phanteks NV5, which was the last Phanteks case I looked at, as I struggled to put this back on, that was the same price as this case. Well, that'll do. However, it didn't come with any fans, so they could obviously spend more on the construction, whereas in this one, the fans alone work out to about £36, so that leaves over half the cost for the case as a whole, everything else. So it's understandable we're going to see some cost cutting in certain places, but that back panel, yeah, really does annoy me. So those issues aside, the case is very spacious and easy to build in. The build itself went very smoothly, minus that panel. I've actually got more cables on my PSU as you might generally use, as I need to be able to cover different cases that use SATA, Molex for fan connectors and stuff like that. They're easy to tuck into the hard drive cages, and even if you're going to make use of those, there's still ample room for all your cables. Inside there are quite a few empty gaps you can see through, mainly because of the rear connect support, so you do have to be conscious of that when cable managing. There are also some pre-installed fan cables going between clips in between cutouts too. I managed to partially hide the new 6-pin connector for the rear fan, that's their new NextLink connector, but as these are daisy chain fans, that now means that there's 2 cables that are visible instead of 1. If you're going to use an AIO, then most of those will be covered, but as this is more an affordable price point, there's no guarantee you will be, as most people may do just with an air cooler. Now, thankfully, all the cables in this are colour matched, so it's not the end of the world, but if you like a super clean build, that's something that might put you off. Now, let's go through temperatures before more of my thoughts. I've got a test system here, which is the 5800X3D called by the Noctua NHU12A on the Asus X570 Pro 2. There's 16GB of Kingston Fury Beast DDR4, Solidline P44 Pro 1TB NVMe for storage. The graphics card is the Asus TUF RTX 3080. That's all powered by an EVGA Platinum 850W power supply. Now, in my testing, I saw a high temperature of 73.4 degrees, removing the ambient of 16.3, leaves us with a delta of 51.7, putting this in the second spot in my chart. Now, that molded shroud for the front intake fans really helps the airflow to the CPU. In the last video, I looked at the Lian 207, which was a cooler by 1.1 degrees, but that had 30mm thick fans in the front going a boatload faster. So for these being a max of 1300 RPM in a combination with the shroud, I think is a really great way to do things. I also ran the test without the dust filter for those that are curious. That went even cooler than the 207 with a delta of 55.7. I think a middle ground with the mesh like we saw in the G500A Performance Edition would be good for this. Maybe we might see something like that in the future though. Also worth mentioning, these fans were on full speed as they were 1300 RPM max. The Noctuas are at 1500, but I could still talk over it, and it was a lot quieter than the 207, so good points to Phanteks there. But overall, I think this is a good case for £85. Great if you're a beginner building for the first time. Obviously just prepare some patience with the back panel, or if you're looking for something that's affordable with good performance. However, if you're able to deal with a smaller form factor, then I'd say that the Lee & 207 just pips this case to the post. It's a little bit cheaper, plus also feels a little bit more premium overall. So I'm going to wrap this up here so I can get this video out for you guys on the embargo. But if there's anything else you'd like to know, then of course leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'll also leave links in the description if you want to pick one of these up. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and ding the bell so you don't miss any future uploads, and also the AIO review coming in the next few days. Thank you to Phanteks for sending this out for me to review, and I'll see you all in the next one.